So I'm here at the Soho Theatre with Joe Dempsie, who's starring in Even Stillness Breathes Softly Against a Brick Wall. Joe, it's your London debut on the stage, isn't it? How are you finding it?
It's been great so far, actually. Theatre is something that I've wanted to do for a really long time, but it can be quite a tough medium to break into, actually, because there are so many talented actors out there that are doing great work on stage already. So if it can be a bit of a catch-22 sometimes, if there are people that have loads more experience than you, and they might end up getting a lot of the parts kind of ahead of you. So I was really glad that I got given the opportunity to give it a go with such a great and interesting script, because I've sort of always said that in terms of the work that I do, the medium isn't something that overly concerns me. It's that I always feel like I want to do stuff that's original and sort of challenging and kind of divisive in ways as well. And I think this play absolutely fits the bill as far as that's concerned. So it's hard work. My housemates were sort of delighted that I was suddenly having to get up at a normal time and couldn't just sit in my pants watching Sky Sports News every day. So yeah, first week of rehearsals, I was coming back and moaning that 9 to 5s are really, really rubbish. But it's been really fun. I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Now, for the people who haven't seen it yet out there, tell them what it's about and what your character is in the play as well.
This is always a difficult one. But the play is essentially, it's a two-hander, so there are two characters called him and her. I play him, in case you were guessing. And they're a couple who essentially, the first half of the play is them just describing their daily routine to the audience. And over the course of the play, they sort of realise just how much they hate it and how much they've been kind of just putting up with a lot of the baggage that comes with modern life, and kind of led by him due to a kind of an encounter with a work colleague. They start developing this philosophy about how to shut all of those unwanted outside influences. They realise that the only things they really care about are each other, and so why do they need anything else, really? And so that's when the play takes a sort of a quite different turn, and they start seeing what happens if they push the boundaries a little bit.
And they're both very much characters who are quite in their own heads in a way, aren't they? As I guess many people are in modern life, and that's what the message, I guess, is of the play. There's a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry, thinking about what people are thinking about them. Did you identify with any of those parts of your character? Yes, I did actually. I mean, I think modern living has given us all so many more neuroses than I guess people didn't worry about all this stuff in like the 1800s. But I identify with the whole him more than her seems to be more paranoid about what his colleagues think of him and how he's perceived and whether he is perceived as someone who is successful or achieving to his full potential. I think he realizes after a while that he's definitely not. I sort of do all that to a certain extent. I think I kind of grew out of it a little bit after my sort of teens. I was quite self-conscious in my teens, but so it's in a way it's harking back to that a little bit. And I think because there is something about him that is quite, he is kind of a little bit adolescent in ways. And I think, and then the fun side of that comes out as well towards the latter stages of the play where, he just really starts trying to mess with people's minds and indulging that inner delinquent. And there's a great line he has in the play, or you have as him in the play as well, about my business studies degree didn't prepare me to be this inconsequential.
I've got loads of friends that did business studies degrees at university, so I really can't wait for them to see this play. I think that again is so symbolic of the age that we live in, and specifically now, as I've just said, a lot of my friends went to university to do business studies or business-related courses, and that was because we all applied during a time of unending in our heads economic prosperity, and then all of a sudden the recession hit while they were in first year, I think, and it just all kind of went downhill for everybody. And, you know, everyone was sold this dream of getting a degree and being headhunted by some big finance company in the city and living on, you know, 150 grand a year, and it didn't really happen for anyone. You know, they came out and struggled to get jobs at all, you know, in, you know, Pizza Express, let alone, you know, a big high-flying, you know, multinational.
And of course, there's a lot of, you know, politics in the play, a lot of kind of looking at the society we live in now. But it also has a lot of humour as well, doesn't it? There's a heck of a lot of humour you have in there.
Well, I think it's essential, because it can be, and we worked on that quite a lot, because, you know, Brad is such a, he's a really funny guy, and you have to imbue his writing with the same sense of humour that he's got, because there's one way that you can read the play, which is completely just abject cynicism the whole way through. You know, it's laden with it, but I think if you deliver it all in that way, then it can get quite one note. And I think because it's just two characters and it is so intense and the space is so claustrophobic, you have to have some of that sort of light relief in there. And I also think you have to like these two people as well, at least to a certain extent at the beginning, to buy into their journey and to root for them. So yeah, the humour is something that we worked on quite a bit and tried to kind of give it that initial sense of, I think you can be cynical but still have a sense of hope. You know, sort of this is how my life is and it's shit, but what can you do? Yeah. And so I'm glad that comes across.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And you mentioned the space there as well. It's a very intimate space, so I think it works perfectly for this play, doesn't it?
I don't think you could do it in a space much bigger. To be honest, I think it's. As I just mentioned, the claustrophobia of this apartment is key to audiences feeling that sort of same sense of unease, really, and it's been good for us as well to keep it. I think it's not the kind of play as well that because there is so much dialogue. You don't want to have to shout too loud to be heard, and obviously as someone who's done a lot of mostly screen work in the past, it's great for me having not been to RADA. I don't have to project too much, so thanks, Lindsay.
Working well, exactly. And now you've also got a co-star in there. The hair of the title is Lara Rossi, who you've worked with before, haven't you, in Murder TV drama. What's it like working with her again, but on stage? And also you worked with a friend who's the director, haven't you, too? Yeah,
well, I think that's what's made this so perfect for me in many ways, and with it being my first play, and it being quite challenging material and a big ask. We've kind of done it without thinking about it, but then when I do think about it, I'm sure most other plays will seem like a walk in the park compared to this. But what's made it a lot easier has been the fact that we've been working with such good friends already. Yeah, I've known Nadia for a couple of years now socially, and then having worked with Lara last year. It's as you know, it's the kind of play where the less breaking of the ice you have to do before you get started, the better. And there was none to do with Lara, because we'd spent a couple of weeks up in Edinburgh last year filming, and it was weird how the roles have kind of reversed. Lara was quite nervous on set last year because she hadn't done an awful lot of screen work, and it was very much her kind of asking us what to expect, and now the roles have completely reversed. I'm working with a seasoned pro when it comes to stage, and I'm the one that's nervous this time.
When you have to do things like singing on stage or eating that sandwich, do you try and keep it a bit different for yourself each night? Are you always singing the same song? Do you have a different sandwich?
Well, that'd be interesting. Consistency's been the key for me anyway. Again, I'm glad that you've described it as singing. I'm not sure many in the audience would go that far, but no, they're all things. I think that's another. Yeah, the weird thing about this is I look back on it and I look at what we do every night, and it's pretty nuts. But we've all just kind of got on with it without really thinking about it. I think that's the only way to approach a play like this. I think if you're an actor that thinks about those kind of things too much, you're kind of going to be a bit screwed with this one.
Now, without giving away what happens in the latter part of the play, do you find what does happen cathartic at all?
That's a good question. I mean, I think the interesting thing about the play is that it challenges, it makes people challenge their daily routines, and it makes people question whether they're happy in their lives and whether they need to kind of be part of this this sort of never-ending rat race, for want of a better term. But I think the really interesting thing about it is that the characters try and find a way to break free from that. And it is, and to watch, I imagine it's really quite empowering and quite liberating seeing them kind of just take this kind of really nihilistic route. But whether it actually works or not, and whether either of them are actually happy or any better by the end of it is really ambiguous, and you know, I'm not sure if they are. Yeah. So it's kind of making a mockery of modern society, whilst also saying that, you know, you're probably not going to be any better if you try and do something different.
Exactly. It was certainly an interesting play. It was all these different aspects to it. You mentioned your TV work there in relation to Lara as well, working ahead last year. Obviously, this is a very intimate production, and one of the things we know you for so well now is a very vast production, isn't it, which is Game of Thrones. How have you found working on season 3 of that compared to the previous 2 seasons?
Season 3, I mean, I see season 3 of Game of Thrones, hopefully how I'll see my 3rd play that I do. You know, you get more and more comfortable with every year that goes by, really. It took me a good couple of seasons to come to terms with or to get my head around the scale of the thing. You know, it's huge. I've spent years kind of shooting on location in the dark, where, you know, there are lighting guys putting lights up on poles and making sure they're all angled in the right place so that it can hit you properly. And then you get to Game of Thrones and they don't bother with that. They have a helium-filled blimp of light in the middle of the sky, like their own sun. And so it took a while for the nerves to settle. But then once you get to know everyone, it's just great. You feel as comfortable and as relaxed as you would be on, you know, the smallest of film sets. And so I've really enjoyed season 3, and especially because I feel like personally I've been entrusted with ever more as the series have progressed, and they've even started writing, you know, new storylines for my character that don't appear in the novels, which is a really nice kind of show of faith and seal of approval sort of thing. And also I've made so many friends on Game of Thrones. That's been the main way in which my life has changed as a result of the show. I think in terms of my day-to-day existence, you know, I look so different in real life in comparison to how I'm seen in the program, that I don't really get sort of stopped or recognised. But I've just made it loads and loads of mates, and it's great.
And you've got a kind of nice team. Well, you had a lovely team, didn't you, on Game of Thrones with Arya and Hot Pie, of course Maisie Williams and Ben Hawkey. We see you broken up now. Do you think you'll ever get back together again? Would you like it to come back together again?
I mean, I'd love Gendry, Arya and Hot Pie to sort of form a badass outlaw kind of movement and take the throne by whatever force necessary. Not quite sure it's what George Martin has in mind, but the amazing thing is that you really never know. Everyone's kind of in the dark, and I think, and the fact that even with the stuff that's contained within the books, as I just mentioned, they're not. David Benioff and Dan Weiss aren't afraid to go off piste a little bit. It just keeps everyone on their toes. You really don't know what's going to happen, and it was great working with Maisie and Ben, and it was really sad to sort of have to leave the pair of them. But I always think that wherever Gendry, at least initially, up until this point, wherever Gendry has been seen, it's always been with Arya, and it's always been as a kind of foil for Arya. And I think you were only ever really going to get to find out more about Gendry, the person, when he struck out on his own a little bit. So hopefully that will continue. Yeah.
And working with Maisie, we actually spoke to Maisie recently, and she said, we asked her who was the biggest prankster on set. She said Ben Hawkey, but you egg him on. So what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I just make the cannonballs and pass them to Ben to fire. Well, it's a great thing about those two is that it doesn't matter how many jobs I do, I'm still terrible at getting up in the mornings. Like, I'm really bad. And so I'll often sort of arrive on set, just eyes barely open. But it's like having kids, basically, that within a few minutes they're mucking around and they've got you on your toes again. And so yeah, Ben, I mean, the amount of times we nearly couldn't shoot a scene because Ben was mucking about and still making us laugh or doing some Family Guy impression or something was honestly lost count. But it's also just great watching. For me, I sound like a parent here, but with all of the youngsters who I think they cast so well on Game of Thrones, because I think in any film or TV show that you watch, it doesn't matter how good everyone else is. If the kids are a bit rubbish, it always kind of just slightly colours your judgment of the thing as a whole, and then you get a great performance from a young actor, and it can suddenly just take everything to a whole other level. So everyone's brilliant, but it's been great for me watching them grow up. You know, you're getting to hang out with them in the most formative years of their lives, and every year that you come back, they're a little bit different, a little bit more adult, you know, have their own opinions on things, and it's just been great. Loved every minute.
You mentioned King Gendry there. What kind of king do you think he would make?
I genuinely, and I'm not just saying this because it would be so great for me and I'd look really cool. I think he'd be a great king. I think he obviously has the blood of Robert Baratheon in him, and we've seen in episodes past that when he needs to fight, he can fight. And I've always said about Gendry that I feel he's the kind of person that's never started a fight in his life, but has certainly finished a few. And I think that's a great quality to have in a leader. But I think because of his tough upbringing and his his uncertainty about his ancestry and his past, and the fact that he's essentially spent most of his life on the bottom rung of society, I think what that will give him over even his own father is just a real sense of compassion and a real kind of, I think he'd be a real champion of the underdog, and I think he'd be a really fair and just king, and who could want more than that?
Definitely. We hope
sort it out.
Yeah, sort it out. Totally.
Yeah.
Well, I hope he gets rid of Melisandre very soon. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't. It was certainly a strange way to lose your virginity, but I don't think he knew what was going on. I thought, it'd be a real roller coaster of emotions for him. That, but I think Gendry's the kind of person that he'll be more annoyed with himself than with her. That he was kind of. I don't think he sees himself as a naive person, because I think as he's been growing up, he's always had a lot of street smarts and probably been able to outwit a lot of the people that have tried to get one over on him. But now he's moving into these upper echelons of people that have been playing games for years, and just know how to manipulate people so well. And I think everything's a learning curve for him, and I don't think he'll be making the same mistake twice.
Definitely. No more leeches for you then?
No.
That scene must have been a little bit uncomfortable,
well, again,
wasn't it?
It's that with Game of Thrones, you wonder how they're going to do certain things. When I first read that scene, obviously my first thought was, I wonder how they're going to do the leeches. They're going to CGI them in or something. And then I thought about it for about 2 minutes and said, no, they're going to just put real leeches on me, aren't they? And that's exactly what they did.
What did that feel like?
They were all fed, so that was fine. But then the result of that was they weren't really sort of latching on.
Oh, right.
So they just kind of just slide off. I was lying there, they just sort of slide off me, and I'd be like, is it under my back now? And yeah, so no, it was fine. It was cool. But I mean, they asked me beforehand. They said, "We just want to check you're cool with leeches, aren't you?" Right? And I was like, "Well, I've not hung out with leeches before. I don't know, but it's one way to find out."
Now, finally, why should people come and see Even Stillness at the Soho Theatre?
I think in terms of Even Stillness, I think it's the kind of play. We've kind of discussed the play and analysed the play at length, and it's going to be the kind of thing that it's really not, it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but it's certainly going to make you, whether you buy into the characters' philosophies or not, it's certainly going to make you question a hell of a lot, and question your own mindset and your own kind of your own life and your own daily routine. And I think it's it's just Brad Birch I think is destined for huge things. Such an interesting writer, and for a guy that's only 23 to have all these amazingly funny, dark, interesting, visceral thoughts running through his head, it's just really remarkable. And I think, the main reason would be so you can tell all your friends in like 10 years' time that you saw Brad Birch's first play and be really smug about it.
Yeah, and Joe Dempsie on stage for the first time as well.
Yeah, and that, and Lara Rossi as well is just putting in a fantastic performance, and I think that's the thing, and it's been a lot of lines for us to learn, so it'd be great if people came and watched us say them.